Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk with you about aesthetics. Now, before you click away from this video, we're not going to be talking about how to obtain a certain aesthetic that you might have seen on TikTok or Pinterest. This video is about finding your true, authentic aesthetic and expressing that as a form of self-love. Now, what even is an aesthetic? Cambridge Dictionary describes an aesthetic as relating to the enjoyment or study of beauty and the particular style of appearance that something or someone has. We often see this term used in the context of like the clean girl aesthetic or cottagecore aesthetic. These are prescribed narratives of what our society considers beautiful. Now, I'd argue that aesthetics should be more personal than that. Like the old adage goes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And in order to find your true aesthetic, we're going to need to look inward. I see my aesthetic very similarly to the way I see makeup. I love makeup, but I don't necessarily do it for other people. I do it as an expression of myself, of my creativity. And that brings me a level of confidence to be able to express myself that no trend ever could. Finding and embracing your aesthetic is the same type of expression, just on a larger scale. Neuroscientist Anjan Chatterjee, and I apologize for the terrible mispronunciation, proposed that when you're immersed in an aesthetic experience, you can really feel it. In a 2019 article in the Cerebrum academic journal, they noted, quote, "The effect on body and mind is both profound and highly personal. When we are engaged in aesthetic experiences in creating or beholding art, our reward system in our brain releases dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin that trigger sensations of pleasure and positive emotions." So finding and embracing your personal aesthetic is not just about finding your style. It's about surrounding yourself with that positive energy. I see it as a crucial part of self-love and self-care. But the journey to finding that authentic self can feel pretty daunting. Where do you even start? I've broken my own process down into 8 simple steps that I use when honing in on my personal aesthetic, and I hope that they can help you in your journey as well. We are bombarded every day with hundreds of images and videos on TikTok and Pinterest and Instagram and Facebook. Now, I really encourage you to take a little hiatus from these apps just while you're going through this process. Seeing other posts, likes, comments can really start to sway our subconscious and could potentially limit what you consider when you're exploring your identity. Since this is all about getting in tune with your innermost self, it's important to try to block out those external variables. Define your elements of interest. You could do this a few different ways, but I recommend using your favorite comfort movies as a catalyst for this process. I know what you're thinking, what could this possibly have to do with finding my aesthetic? But trust me on this. You're going to use these movies to pinpoint what it is that sparks that little fire within you. What is it about the characters or the setting that create that interest and intrigue in you? So here's a little assignment. I want you to go watch these movies and bring some paper and a pen with you and take notes about what it is that's truly speaking to you throughout the movie. And this can be anything. It can be the wardrobe of a character. It can be a specific location. It can be the soundtrack of a movie or an accent. Really anything that speaks to you, write that down. From here on out, we're going to call this list our elements of interest. You're going to want to do this with a few films. I'd recommend a minimum of 3. And then you're going to take your list and narrow it down to about 5 or 10 things. These are the elements that I want you to experiment with in incorporating into your aesthetic throughout this process. Here's an example of my list that I created as I watched my favorite comfort movies. I personally really love Bram Stoker's Dracula from 1992, starring the amazing, incredible, iconic Winona Ryder, Keanu Reeves, and a disturbingly hot Gary Oldman. When I watched that movie, things like the tension of romance and terror and the gothic setting really stand out to me. Another one of my favorite comfort movies is When Harry Met Sally from 1989 with Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal. Elements of interest that I pull from this romantic comedy are things like the autumnal vibes and the soft fabric of woven sweaters. The Ring from 2002 may be a surprising addition to this list for some, but I find this movie to be a peak comfort. Some of my selected elements are the blue and green hues, the rainy atmosphere, and the modern apartments. And lastly, the 1988 horror comedy classic Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, starring Cassandra Peterson, brings elements of playfulness, rock music, and female empowerment. Now, this is my personal list. Yours should look very different and be specific to what sparks joy in your heart. We know that having a cohesive color palette can be extremely powerful. Marketing teams use strategic color combinations to attract customers and evoke emotions all the time. We're going to harness the power of color to enhance our aesthetic. Now, to make this process a little bit more engaging and perhaps more effective, I recommend going to your local art gallery or maybe going to a library and picking up a couple of books on various art styles that has a lot of pictures. If you aren't able to do this, you can always scroll on Etsy to view individual artists' work, or you can go to the Met Museum online to view famous artwork throughout history. By doing this, you're exposing yourself to hundreds of color palettes that are unique and very likely different from any of the color palettes that you're going to see on trending Pinterest boards or Instagram posts. I like to select at least 4 base colors, at least 1 tone of wood, and 1 metal finish. The color palette that I utilize in my personal aesthetic is inspired from this painting called Moon Mother. I have linked the artist and her Etsy account in the description below. Unfortunately, I think her Etsy shop might be closed for the moment. I also like to include acacia wood or acacia wood, however you say that, and some silver or nickel finishes. Create a vision board. I like to use Canva for this process. I have the pro account, but you can definitely use the free version or you can use a different software. I'll include a link to the template that I'm using in the description below. I'm going to drag in my color palette that I've selected and start incorporating my elements of interest into the mood board. To do this, I like to just start typing in these keywords into Google or Pinterest, look at related images, and then save photos that really speak to me and drop them into the mood board. Once you're done with this activity, this board will act as your guide for the rest of this process. Of course, you can always update this and adapt as you and your interests evolve over time. For this part, I want you to look around your home at things you already own, and this can be decor or furniture or anything else that fits any of those elements of interest that you identified or any of the color palette that you've identified. And I want you to really highlight those things in your home. The point of this process is not to be excessively materialistic or like go out and just buy a bunch of things that fit your aesthetic just to fill up your home and make it feel like, you know, like your mood board. This is going to take time. It's a process, it's a journey, and that is okay. Just by embarking on the journey, you will start to feel that spark within you. And that's what we're really aiming for. You might find a thing or two at a retailer that really fits an element that you want to bring in. And if you have the means, then that's wonderful. But of course, I encourage you to check out pre-owned items before you rely on the big box retailers. I say this not just from a sustainability standpoint, though that is incredibly important and a valid point, but retailers are generally going to carry more trendy items, and this could potentially limit that unique expression that we're going for. If I were looking for some new pieces for my home, I would start with Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, OfferUp, or any sort of local market, whether that's a flea market, a thrift store, or even a yard sale. I also really love a website called Cherish for antique finds. By looking in this variety of places, you're more likely to find those unique pieces that really express those elements of interest that you're looking for, because there's so much variety over different periods of time and different parts of the world. Sometimes you already have an item in your home that is like almost perfect. There's just maybe something off about it. An example of that is years ago when I was first starting this journey of finding my personal aesthetic. We did not have a lot of disposable income by any means, and we had a functional dining table. It was fine. It was this like brown reddish color that really did not vibe well with the color palette I was trying to go with, but we were not in a position to just go buy a new table. So I pulled out my painting supplies and I bought a $10 can of paint and some epoxy from Lowe's, and I completely transformed this table into a piece of furniture that we would love for years until it eventually broke in a move. This is a great example of how you can take something that you already own that maybe you don't love and upcycle it into something that's a true expression of yourself. This is a very similar process to changes that you're already making in your physical environment. I want you to go in your closet and find the pieces of clothing that you already own that reflect those elements of interest. Then maybe go to ThredUp or a local thrift store and see if you can find items that really call to you in those ways. I personally like to have a capsule wardrobe that incorporates my entire color scheme, because that allows for like a cohesiveness throughout. That doesn't mean that I won't wear things that I love that are not in that color scheme. It just means that there's that cohesiveness throughout my closet. What we do in our spare time says a lot about who we are and what we value. Sometimes when life gets really busy, we lose sight of those things that really spark joy in us. Or maybe you're like me and never really had any real hobbies that inspired you or made you feel deeply engaged. For this activity, we're going to utilize some modern technology and let ChatGPT do the work for us. Okay, so I'm gonna go to ChatGPT. I'm just using the free version of the site, and I'm going to ask it to give me a list of hobbies that are associated with a select few of my elements of interest. Let's start with Gothic settings. Okay, let's see what we get. Ooh, reading Gothic literature. Playing and collecting board games like Mysterium and Arkham Horror. I actually have both of those games and I love them, but I haven't pulled them out in a really long time. So this is a great example of like how this can kind of reignite old hobbies that maybe they just like fell to the back burner. Reading tarot cards. I love tarot cards. Gothic gardening. This sounds incredible. Focusing on dark colored plants and flowers. I love that if I can keep them alive. But if they die, does that make it more Gothic? Okay, let's try two more. For the next one, let's do give me a list of hobbies associated with autumnal vibes. Knitting or crocheting. I do have some knitting needles. Going on scenic nature walks or hikes. I love that because I can do it all year round, except maybe not at the peak of summer like right now because it is so hot. Brewing and tasting different flavors of tea. Okay, let's try one more. Let's do playfulness. Okay. Ooh, rollerblading or skateboarding. I used to play roller derby. It was a short stint of it, but it was a lot of fun. I did get a little injured, so kind of stopped doing that. But I would love to go to a roller rink. That could be a lot of fun and a great way for me to kind of reignite that passion. Hosting a themed costume party or dress-up event. Halloween, say no more. I'm on it. And try out different arts and crafts techniques. I would love to do that. I think having, like a little arts and crafts Q&A time, that could be fun. Okay, so from this, I'm gonna create a list of activities that I wanna give a try, and I'm gonna gauge how they make me feel. Showing up for yourself is one of the most genuine forms of self-love, and I feel like there's no better way to show that self-love than to invest time in things that truly bring you joy. Remember that this experiment is all about reconnecting, embracing, and expressing your true self. Understand that this likely means you won't fit a specific aesthetic or any other standard of beauty, fashion, or interior design. It's going to be you. The confidence that comes with truly expressing yourself can be so powerful. You're no longer showing up in the world the way that you think other people want you to, but you're showing up the way that you want to. That mindset can be life-changing. I know that for me personally, this process has been a net benefit on my mental health and the way that I perceive myself. And of course, as we continually grow and evolve throughout our life, our authentic aesthetic probably will and should change. But it's not when the trends change, it's when you change. It's about staying true to yourself and celebrating the amazing person that you are. Thank y'all for hanging out with me today. I would love to hear from you in the comments below. Did you try out this experiment for yourself? And if you did, was there anything that surprised you about your process? Give this video a like if you want to see more content like this in the future, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.